We now have everyone in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Hello.
good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to this meeting of the Waverley Local Planning Panel for its meeting of the 27th of October 2021, and commence by announcing the members of today's panel. My name is Paul Steen, I'm the chair. The expert members today are Mr. Graham Brown and Ms. Philippa Freckleton, and the community member is Ms. Penelope Mora. I ask the members of the panel to disclose any conflicts of interest they may have in relation to each and every item on the agenda today. I have none. Are there any conflicts to be noted?
No conflicts for me, thank you.
No conflicts for me, Philippa.
Thank you.
I have a conflict in relation to item 3.
And that is, just turning the pages. That's 38 Queen's Park Road, Queen's Park.
Yes, that's right.
So will you absent yourself from that matter?
Yes.
For the entire meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
stay close by when you absent yourself so we can get you back for the rest of the agenda.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Well, we've got a very long meeting today. There are 12 items, so I would ask the members of the public who are addressing the meeting to their allocated time of 3 minutes, and we'll be able to get through the meeting before nightfall. First item on the agenda, we'll get straight into it, is apartment 401 350 Oxford Street, Bondi Junction. And there's one speaker registered to speak, and that is the architect, Mr. Alexander Bitterman. Is he present?
Might just have to write it down. Mr. Lets you copy and paste.
Is Mr. Bitterman present, please?
Paul, he's not in the meeting.
He's not at the meeting. Okay. Well, we'll
Yes.
consider this application close of the public meeting and notify our decision accordingly. We can move then to the number 2 item on the agenda, which is 74 Bondi Road, Bondi Junction. And is Mr. Philip Bull present? Is Mr. Philip Bull Planner present?
He's present, currently on mute.
Oh. Could Mr. Bull unmute himself? We're calling 74 Bondi Road, Bondi Junction now, and in particular, Mr. Philip Bull. He's still muted?
He's still muted. We're just trying to look into that.
Do I get back in?
Well, look, I think what we can do is we can pass over this matter and come back to it, and hopefully Mr. Bull will be with us then. So the next item that we'll go to on the agenda, number 3, is 38 Queen's Park Road. Ms. Mora will absent herself from this. And the speaker is Mr. Bolton, AJ Bolton. Is he present?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you too, Mr. Bolton. And your
Fantastic.
name is Andrew Bolton. I think you're the applicant.
That's right, I'm the owner and the applicant, and really I'm just dialing in if there are any questions. I don't have anything material to add to the application. In summary, I'm seeking 13 extra metres of floor space, and I'm here because the F floor space ratio is over. Everything within the proposed is within the building, so there's no external and there's no complaints from any neighbours, so everything's within that. But if there's any questions that anyone has, then I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Are there any questions of Mr. Bolton from the members of the panel?
Not for me, thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, I don't have any either. Mr. Bolton, thank you for attending and making yourself available for questions. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this matter and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
So will Rosalina let me know if Mr. Bull unmutes himself? Otherwise, we'll go on with the agenda. And the next item, number 4 on the agenda, is apartment 1, 146 Ramsgate Avenue, North Bondi. And Mr. Brad Schwartz is registered to speak.
Hi.
Hello, Mr. Schwartz. And you're the architect on behalf of the applicant.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, thank you for attending. So what would you like to say?
Look, really just here also to answer any questions. The council planner has recommended approval. Joe Somerville, and we're in support of his recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Does the panel have any questions of Mr. Schwartz?
No, thank you.
The parent, Ms. Freckleton, any questions?
No, no questions for me. Thank you.
Okay. And is Ms. Mora back with us? Is Ms. Penelope Mora back with us?
Yeah, I'm back and I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you for making yourself available. We appreciate that. There often is a situation where we do have a question and there's nobody available from the applicant. So thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you. So that brings us to 3 Military Road, North Bondi. And there is one speaker on behalf of the applicant, Vlad Vishny.
Yes, Mr. Stone, it's me here. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of the applicant.
Yes, just a couple of words. I know it's a long meeting. As you can see from your papers, it's been recommended for approval subject to conditions. The applicant accepts the conditions and doesn't cavil with any of them. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. The only thing I would say is that it's recommended for deferred commencement consent. The applicant's already submitted the drawings to reflect the things that the planners wanted to consider further for commencement, and I would just ask that just to minimise the amount of time that council has to spend on this application further. I know they're very busy. Just to say that that's already with them. It's a fairly minor thing. It's got to do with a holding bay in the driveway of the property. So any assistance that we can give them in looking at that, we're more than happy to provide. Thank you.
So does these amended plans, Mr. Vishny, include the holding bay drawings? Or what?
Yes, they do, Mr. Chair. They were actually provided to council yesterday, so unfortunately, I don't think they made it into your papers.
Oh, they did.
They are with council already with the planners, but I don't think you've got them in front of you. But no. The condition basically dealt with the driveway just to create a holding bay there for loading and unloading things for the neighbourhood shop, and that's now been provided. I mean, I can share the screen. I've got them here in front of me. I can share the screen.
That would be useful.
All right, let me just give that a go. 1 second. Share screen. So can you see that now?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Yeah. So these are the drawings that were provided to council yesterday. So that's the roof plan, that's some elevations, and that's the ground floor plan. And we're looking at this area here, which has now been clouded and has been represented now as having the wider area to allow a holding bay here at the side, so that on those occasions when the small neighbourhood shop needs to be provided with goods or whatever, then there's some provision there to retain a vehicle here off the street. The traffic report dealt with that actually, and the traffic engineer didn't think that would create any traffic issues, just because the deliveries are so scant for such a small premises. But we're quite happy. Council required that, and we're quite happy to have that. So these drawings are now with the planners to respond to that deferred commencement condition.
Well, thank you. And just answer me one question. In relation to those plans and this holding bay, can it accommodate a sufficient sized vehicle without overhanging?
But my understanding is, yes, it can. I mean, obviously, we're talking about short deliveries. As I say, that configuration was actually represented on the traffic engineer's submission that went to council with the application. And the traffic engineer showed that as being a possible configuration that could be included if desirable. The traffic engineer then said that in his view, it wasn't really necessary to comply with traffic movements and things in that area. However, it was there in a kind of a draft form, and I think council decided that they wanted that included, and hence that's now been firmed up as the adopted scheme.
Okay, thank you. Do other members of the panel have any questions for Mr. Vishny?
No questions.
Nobody has any questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Vishny. Thank you for coming along and making that explanation. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. Now,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Philip Bull is now present in the room. So we'll go back to 74. Well, actually, I think he was present before, but he was muted. 74 Bondi Road, Bondi Junction. Now, Mr. Bull, you're the planner on behalf of the applicant.
I have been, and I'm representing the applicant. Thank you for hearing the item. Sorry about the technical problems. There was a button I didn't push that confused me. I've got it now. Look, this is a good news story. It's an existing boarding house. My client's renovating the premises and actually adding some accommodation to the lane. We're happy with the report. Peggy Wong did a very competent, thorough report, which is nice to see. So I've thanked her. So I don't have anything to say. I'm just here to say Thanks to the planners, thanks to the managers, thanks to the panel, and if you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Are there any questions of Mr. Bull in relation to this
No.
application?
No questions.
I just want to ask, the front balcony upstairs, those black aluminium framed panels that are glass panels that are immediately behind it, what's the purpose of that?
Well, really to retain the enclosure. I mean, this terrace is part of a row of heritage items, and the two adjoining ones have kept their enclosure. So, I mean, largely because it's a busy road, they're keeping the enclosures, and yeah, I might have a look at that plan, probably, but you're more interested in the actual architectural focus. Let's have a look.
Well, yeah, the appearance of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea is, are you talking about the sort of balustrading? The idea is sort of having a...
Yeah, you've got the balustrading, and then behind it, there's some what appear to be glass panels with black aluminium frames around them.
I think that's just the framing of the windows.
And where are those windows? Are they up against the balustrade?
They're set back behind the balustrade slightly.
Like how far are they set back?
Well, I'm not really, just give me a look. Sorry, I'm just trying to, my computer's a bit slow. I mean, it's a bit hard to tell on the plan that I've got here, but
yeah,
I mean, I presume it's a sort of I mean, they pretty much would be butted up against the balustrade. I mean, I'll have to check with the architect's actually on holidays at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's what it looked like on the plan. I was just checking.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions of Mr. Bull, or can I thank him? Thank you for your attendance, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, panel.
And at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify a decision on the council website. Thank you very much. We can move then to the next item, which is 4 Victory Street, Rose Bay, modification application, and the speaker registered to speak is Ms. Sue Weiner.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Hello there. And you are one of the 2 applicants, or you are?
I think I'm the only applicant.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, if I could ask, I don't know the agenda, if people could turn to page 219 of the agenda.
Yes.
Or alternatively, I might be able to share the page if it's easier.
We can turn over to 219. Yes, I've got that now.
And I don't know if it's in colour, but I just wanted you to look at the figure 7 and the figure 8.
Yes.
Because we, and I know that it's been denied because I do feel like we have irritated council, and I'm sorry for that because we've asked this to be revisited. We wanted to show very clearly that the 2 metres that we're requesting is just the 2 metres that the pre-existing house went to. And it's actually it's our view of the harbour. We only have the northern view. And when council asked us to move the whole 2 stories back by 7 metres, it meant the upper level was further back than the pre-existing house where we lived for 20 years, and that's where we had our view of the harbour. So we are planning on downsizing there, and that by having to move that far back, we have to actually forego our view, which was one of the main reasons that we wanted to downsize and live in the upper part. I wanted to also just read from 2018 what the council and the WLPP said about the development. They said that the reduced exceedance of the development standards in respect of height and floor space ratio has no unacceptable impact outside the property itself, and it has no adverse impact on the general amenity of the surroundings. The only thing they wanted was the deferred commencement, and it was about the setback to the northern boundary in order to reduce the visual length of the proposal. I've quoted that exactly from 2018. because I know that the recommendation that council gave us really, I understand, I know how busy council is, and I do feel they've been irritated, and I feel we've irritated them, and I'm very sorry for that because I know how hard they work. So we did produce as well a report from Carla Castellanos from GMU, where she has, I'd really like it if you could make sure you look at that report, because she has conduced that it really has no impact, because just the extra 2 meters, the original plan was actually to be 1.5 meters, the whole project was 1.5 meters to the northern boundary. So we're asking that the top floor only be moved back 5 meters rather than the 7 meters, so that we can retain our view. As far as the floor space ratio is concerned, when you look at page 219 and you look at figure 8, all of the first floor of Gilbert Street is actually under Gilbert Street. That has all been taken as part of the FSR. We don't feel the FSR is nearly as high as it is, because most of it is underground from Gilbert Street. So I guess we really would ask you to look at this, and we really hope that you'll just let us have our 2 meters and look at the report, so that we've spent a huge amount of time trying to get this through. It's been sent out to 18 residents 3 times now, and we've never had one person object to this, because we have nothing behind us. You can't see us from Catherine Park at all, because we are quite low and Catherine Park is high. So I really would appreciate it very, very much, my husband and I, because we want to retire here, just to consider GMU's report, and in particular in 2018, the fact that, again, that the standards in respect of height and floor space ratio has no unacceptable impact outside the property itself, and no adverse impact on the general amenity of the surroundings. That is what's written by council and by the WLPP, which is not the representation which has come across to you now. And but as I said, I do understand the irritation by council, because when you reapply, you know, it is a lot of work for council, but it has been a lot of work for us too, which we really don't want.
Thank you, Mrs. Weiner. Thank you for your submission. We'll take it into consideration. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. Our job. So we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 20 Wentworth Street, Dover Heights. And there are a number of speakers on behalf of the applicant. I think the first one is Mr. Mark Zhang or Mr. Hamid Samavi from the architect's office. Who wants to speak?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
David Waghorn here. I'm the town planner for the project.
Hey, do you want to go first, Mr. Waghorn?
I would love to go first, Mr. Chair.
Over to you.
Well, put simply, Mr. Chair, we're content with the recommendation as is, including the conditions of consent. We'd like to thank council staff for their efforts in getting this to this panel, and we are really just here to answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you, Mr. Waghorn. Does that mean that you accept the condition that the cantilever pool over the Tasman Sea is not disputed in this application?
Not in this application, Mr. Chair. We reluctantly accept that condition. I understand what council has said in their report, And we will be doing some more work on that if we are to revisit that aspect. But at this point in time, we accept the condition and our client looks forward to building his house.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Are there any questions of Mr. Waghorn from the members of the panel?
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Waghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, panel.
Thank you very much. Now, is the architect or one of the two architects going to speak?
I think David was clear. So if there is anything that we can add, if you have any questions, we are happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zhang. So, is there any questions of the architect, Mr. Mark Zhang, from the members of the panel?
No questions.
No.
Well, thank you very much. And does the owner wish to address us, Mr. Coe? He's registered to speak, that's why I asked. I'll assume that to be a no. All right, I think we've heard all the speakers that wish to speak. As with the other matters on the agenda, at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will adjourn to consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we can move to the next item, which is 122 Hastings Parade, North Bondi. Oops, sorry, that was me being clumsy. So George Caravanis and Bruce Stafford, who wants to speak first?
I'll go first, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Caravanis, for the record, you're from GSA Planning on behalf of the applicant.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'll be very brief. I've got Mr. Bruce Stafford on separate video link, and he's happy to answer any questions. He doesn't need to make a separate presentation. And I'd first like to confirm that we've gone through the thorough assessment report by the council officers, and of course concur and happy with the recommendation, and we don't wish to challenge any of the conditions. Secondly, as you would be aware, the proposal does comply with the maximum FSR standard for the site, as well as most of the DCP controls. The key non-compliance is that of height, and that is really a function of the existing garage, which sits on a lower level, and that becomes the existing ground level. It's only isolated to a small portion of the dwelling and does not result in any impacts. And for that reason, is consistent with the objectives of the control and has been supported by council staff. You'll also see in pages 317 and 318 of the council officer's report that the proposal is appropriate in terms of privacy and solar access and relates favourably to its neighbours. Members of the panel, the proposal has been elegantly designed by Bruce Stafford and will comprise what we feel is a positive addition to the street and a dwelling that's consistent with the desired future character of the area. It's for these reasons that we are of the opinion that the proposal is appropriate for the site, the locality, and is worthy of approval. Thank you. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Caravanis from the members of the panel?
No.
No questions.
Right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Does any members of the panel wish to ask Mr. Bruce Stafford, the architect, any questions? He's present.
No questions.
Mr. Brown?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, look, thank you for coming along, Mr. Caravanis, and thank you to Mr. Stafford for making himself available. We appreciate it because often there are questions and there's nobody here for an applicant. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll consider this item and notify our decision accordingly. Thank you very much. We can move on to the next item, which is number 14 St. Thomas Street, Bronte. There are a number of speakers. The first one is Rosa Nunez Delgado. Is that person present?
I am, yes.
Hello there.
Hi.
We can't see you, but we can hear you, so that's the main thing. You are from apartment 212 Thomas Street. Bronte?
I am, yes. So I'm just right next door. So I think we've put in a number of objections, but one of my main objections is it actually looks straight into my main bedroom and also the landscape. So the noise from from the stacker is going to, it's again right into the bedroom. There's a bedroom right next to the stacker. And if you think the reality is people are going to be coming in all hours of the night, people leaving, people coming in and out, and the traffic and the road can no longer cannot sustain that much more traffic on St Thomas Street.
Right. Is there any questions from the members of the panel to Ms. Delgado?
No, thank you.
No, thank you for your submission. We'll move to the next one, which is next objector, which is Lillian Vissel. Is she present?
Yes, I am.
Hello there.
Hi, I'm actually would like, sorry.
You're from apartment 3, number 16, St Thomas Street, Bronte.
I am, and I actually would like Dan Dempsey to address the committee on my behalf. He's actually online at the moment.
He's
Dan Dempsey will speak on my behalf.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a resident of number 18, so next door to...
Oh, there he is.
Right, so you're Mr. Dempsey, are you?
That's right.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to thank council staff for their work reviewing the submission and the recommendation they came up with. Just 2 issues. One, more administration. There were about 15, I think, submissions, objections put in. I think most of the objectors did not receive any notification of the outcome of the review, nor the fact that this meeting was on. So just for admin, it would be good in future to get the notifications. The second one was just reiterating what Rose has said. The car stackers, I think the recommendation was approved for a 2-level car stacker. The traffic in St Thomas Street is pretty bad. It's a very narrow street. There's parking on both sides. Any installation of a car stacker will block traffic left, right and centre. There'll be cars waiting for extended periods of time. And additionally, we do have issues around pedestrian safety. It's quite a heavily trafficked thoroughfare for children and younger people walking through. We're worried that with cars waiting there, waiting for the stackers, it would be an issue for safety in the future. And obviously the issues around noise as well would also be detrimental to the entire neighbourhood.
Thank you for your submission on behalf of Ms. Vissel. Any questions from the members of the panel?
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Greg Crowley. Is he present? Mr. Crowley from 42A St Thomas Street. He was a late registrant. Is he not in the room? I'm assuming.
I think Paul may have had some meetings, and sorry, because I had a meeting also I just jumped out of. So I think Paul's, also on the other side, he's 1 of 12. I think he put in quite a comprehensive objection to the build and again, all of the issues that we've had. So you should have a copy of his objections.
Yes.
So I think overall we, especially him and I, because we're right next door, it's the noise, the privacy, the height. I think we've.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Delgado, for making that point.
Yes, including myself, yeah.
Okay. The next speaker then is Mr. Tim Greer, architect. Mr. Greer present?
He's not in the room.
He's in the, can you admit him to the meeting?
He's not currently in the meeting. I'll try and contact him now.
Oh, well, don't worry. I mean, it's up to him. I don't think why we should chase up people in the middle of the meeting. He's not here. We can note that, but I don't think we should follow him up and chase him up like that. So the next item we'll move to, and that is.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
David Waghorn here. I was actually the town planner involved on behalf of the applicant for this matter. I wasn't listed to speak because Mr. Greer was supposed to be speaking.
That's right.
But look, rather than moving straight on, I can try and assist you in any questions.
If you can, this application is recommended for refusal by the planning report before us. So I don't know the depth of knowledge you have of the application. Or
I know it very well, Mr. Chair. So,
okay. If you'd like to make a submission, please go ahead.
Look, Mr. Chair, we note the response of council staff and the report, and we understand that the proposal is over the height and FSR. But where we're coming from is we're coming from a different tact rather than strict compliance with the controls, because we believe that the proposal as designed is a better outcome, not just for the site, but for some of the adjoining properties. We do acknowledge that there are additional impacts in relation to views and overshadowing on adjoining properties, but we say that these additional impacts are not significant, and there are greater benefits to be had by the approval of this application, more specifically via the provision of 6 parking spaces, or 1 for each unit, compared to no car parking spaces that are currently there, and the provision of additional public views, especially with the removal of the garage structures that effectively are too small to fit a car anyway. So these are benefits. Whilst we acknowledge what council has said in their report, that these do not, I suppose, override the non-compliance, we think that the proposed building form is entirely compatible with the built form of surrounding properties. It fits in. It is effectively a missing tooth at the moment because it is lower than adjoining properties. And whilst it is over the FSR as well, again, the additional bulk and scale will not have a significant impact on adjoining properties.
Am I permitted to make a comment on your comments, please?
No, we don't go backwards and forwards between objectors and submitters. So that's our protocol. Otherwise, things get out of hand and everybody wants to cross-examine everybody else. Meetings deteriorate and never end. But thank you for seeking to speak. Mr. Waghorn, thank you for standing in the breach. Are there any questions of Mr. David Waghorn from the members of the panel?
No questions.
No questions, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Waghorn. So I don't think Mr. Greer is present still in the room, is he?
I've just tried to contact them to let them know that we're on, but yeah, I haven't heard back either.
He was registered to speak because I had his name on the list. So anyway, thank you for trying to contact him. So subject to that, we will consider the application at the conclusion of the meeting and notify our decision on the council website.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, panel.
Thank you, Mr. Waghorn. We'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is number 41 Bondi Road, Bondi, 241, I beg your pardon. And there is Mr. Chris Horton, architect, on behalf of the applicant. I can see his name across the top there. He's muted at the moment. Ah, hello, Mr. Horton.
Hello.
I can see you and we can now hear you too. So your name is Chris Norton, I beg your pardon. and you're the architect on behalf of the applicant from Shed.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we did get a late submission in relation to condition 2B. So if you want to address that or anything else, please go ahead.
Thank you. We concur with the recommendations and proposed conditions put forward by the council, and we're happy to say we had a very productive and constructive assessment process with council and the council officer on this project, so thank you. There is, as you say, there is one condition that we request be amended slightly. We agree with the majority of the recommendations from council's urban designer in respect of making the balustrades solid, in respect of increasing the width of the columns, in respect of increasing the height of the beam at the top of the proposed building on the street frontage. But there's one thing we've asked if we could reconsider or could be reconsidered, and that's the idea to mimic the brickwork sort of battlement projections of the building next door. There's an adjacent brickwork building on Bondi Road that's roughly 100 years old. It's not in a fantastic state of repair. It's a nice enough building, but it's not a heritage listed or contributory building. And the urban designer has suggested that we mimic the battlement form of the parapet of that building on our building. And we say that while we respect the height of the adjacent building, and our urban design strategy is to respect the height of that building and to align with it, we would much rather not mimic the form of the parapet, because our building will be made from precast concrete and the neighboring building, being 100 years old, is made from brickwork. So we think it's not appropriate to try and mimic the construction of that building. Otherwise, we're very happy with the...
And I think you had some alternative wording that you sent through for that condition 2B, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So we've just suggested, we basically just reworded it so that the requirement to insert or to add the sort of battlement form onto our design is removed.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions of Mr. Lawton from the members of the panel?
No questions, thank you.
No questions, thank you.
No questions.
Well, thank you very much for attending and making that submission. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will determine this matter and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
So we move on then to number 1, Bondi Road, Bondi Junction. And there's one speaker, Mr. Eli Gescheit, on behalf of the applicant.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Hello,
Can you hear me?
how are you?
Very well.
Good. So you are the town planner on behalf of the applicant, which is Waverley Council. Oh, actually, the applicant is Savon. That's you, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm the applicant, but I engage on behalf of the business operator
of the Wellness Centre.
Of the Wellness, correct. Yeah. So we've reviewed the council's comprehensive report. We agree with obviously the recommendation, as well as we accept the conditions of consent. And I don't have any other further comments unless the panel have any questions for me.
Thank you very much. There may be questions, so I'll just check with the panel. Any questions of this gentleman from the members of the panel?
No.
No questions, thank you.
Well, look, thank you for making yourself available for any questions, but there don't appear to be any. So at the conclusion of the meeting, public meeting, we'll consider the application and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you very much, Mr. Bishop.
Okay, thank you for your time.
We move on then to 2A Edmund Street, Queen's Park. And the speaker that I have from the council is Mr. Robert Sabato.
Yes, that's me, Mr. Chair. Hi.
Hello. What's your position with the council?
So I'm acting executive manager of major projects.
Okay.
And yes, speaking on behalf of Waverley Council as the applicant for 2A Edmund Street,
yes.
Which is a social housing project. Most of our, well, all DA applications are referred to third-party planners, and as per the recommendation and internal planning recommendation for this DA to be approved. So I'm here to answer any questions. In summary, we have a social housing asset on 2A Edmund Street that has reached the end of its structural life according to a feasibility study, and we're looking at rebuilding that, and it will be managed by Bridged Housing. So just here to answer any questions if there's any objections or queries that anyone else has.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sabato. Are there any questions of this gentleman?
No, thank you.
No questions. Thank you.
None, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming along and addressing us and making yourself available for questions, Mr. Sabato.
Thank you.
Apparently are none. So at the conclusion of the public meeting after a break, we will consider this matter and notify our decision on the council website. So thank you very much to all the speakers. I'll close the public meeting at 10 to 1 with thanks to all. Thank you. Now, the members of the panel, whilst I've got you here, we should take a lunch break now before we resume. What time do you think? 20 past 1 to come back?
Yep.
Is everybody
Yes, that suits me.
Fine, thank you.
Now, don't forget, you come back on the other second link. Come back on the second separate link, not this one